dear friends, I hope you're doing well. Your academic companion is making a comeback after an interval. Apologies. This is an ad hoc video that has been made in response to a request made by a group of students at one of the Moroccan universities. They have requested me to explain to them the notion of a phonological process, presumably because the makeup exam is drawing close. In order to appreciate the contents of this video, I would like to start with the following questions. Number 1, what is a phonological process? Number 2, why do we have phonological processes in natural languages? Number 3, what are the main types of phonological processes that a student taking an introductory course in linguistics needs to know? Answers to these questions will unfold with adequate illustrative examples. So keep watching. First things first, what is a phonological process? A phonological process is a change that sounds undergo in certain contexts, broadly speaking. What does this mean? This means that there are certain sounds that we know that we can pronounce in the normal way. P, t, w, e, u. Vowels and consonants. When we talk about sounds, we talk about vowels and consonants. Vowels and consonants are the main categories, the two main sound types. The two main sound types, of course. Some sounds can change the way they are pronounced. Some of the changes that we are talking about can affect parts of the sound, features, like when I say, for example, voice in, voiced bilabial stop, it can affect voice in, or it can affect labiality, that is to say, a bilabial can be something else other than bilabial, and it can affect manner. Okay, so voice in, place of articulation, manner of articulation. One of these, or two of these, or sometimes the sound can change its identity, it can change all of its features. The sound can transform sometimes into another sound, or sometimes it can disappear, and sometimes it can change its place, etc. Just to summarize what we have said so far, a phonological process is a change that affects speech sounds. That is to say, speech sounds, vowels and consonants, are not pronounced in exactly the same way in all contexts. By contexts, we mean where they can occur at the beginning of the word, in the middle of the word, at the end, at the beginning of a syllable, next to some sounds that cause them to change, and so on and so forth. What is essential here is the idea that phonological processes refer to changes that speech sounds undergo, the changes that affect speech sounds. The idea that you need to keep in mind, and I'm addressing this specifically to beginners in phonology, the idea to bear in mind is that sounds are not fixed in their pronunciation. When I say that t is a voiceless alveolar stop, this is phonetics. So wherever there is a t sound, wherever there is a t sound, we can say, we need to describe it necessarily as a voiceless alveolar stop. In phonology, and therefore we talk about phonological processes, the sound t can change depending on where it occurs. This change is what we refer to as phonological process. Let me give you a very brief example. A very brief example is that in the English language, we have the t sound. I'm using t because we have just talked about it. And this t sound, which is phonetically a voiceless alveolar stop, this t can occur or can appear in two ways. It has two pronunciations in English, but this will depend where this t sound occurs. If the t sound occurs at the beginning of a syllable, then it is pronounced with an extra puff of air. For example, the word time, quote unquote, the t here is at the beginning of the syllable, okay? And at the beginning of the word, necessarily, in this case. So because it occurs at the beginning of a syllable, the sound t is pronounced not as t, but as t. A t plus a h there, a silent h, if you would like to describe it this way. So instead of saying time, it's time. As we can see, t has become t. This is a specific phonological process that characterizes the English language. Okay? This process is called aspiration. Notice, please, that when t occurs at the end of the syllable, then it does not undergo this phonological process. It's not affected by the process. Why? Because there is a rule saying that whenever you have a t sound at the beginning of the syllable, then you have to pronounce it as a t. By the way, the rule does not apply just to t in English. It applies to all voiceless stops. How many voiceless stops do we have in English? 3. P, t, k. So you have a car, okay? A party. I will go to the party. What time is it? He parked the car in the parking lot. As you can see, these sounds, by virtue of their occurring syllable initially, that is to say at the beginning of the syllable, they are pronounced with an extra puff of air. But notice, please, while you have time, you have meat. The t of meat is not aspirated. Why? It's just because it does not occur at the beginning of the syllable. It occurs at the end of the syllable. And in these two cases, of course, syllable also corresponds to a word. But there are longer words where you have many syllables. If a voiceless stop like p, t, k, or at the beginning of the syllable, even if the syllable is in the middle of the word, then it has to be aspirated. Let's take the word important, for example. The exact, notice please, p and t in important. Okay? In important because you have important. Important. Let's take the word impossible. Here we have impossible. 4 syllables. The p here occurs in the second syllable. So because it's a voiceless stop, it has to be pronounced with this extra puff of air. It's impossible. Impossible, not impossible. This is just one way of illustrating what a phonological process is. Now, why do languages have phonological processes? While this is an issue that can be discussed in a relatively advanced course, in a more advanced course, let me tell you directly that phonological processes sometimes take place in order to make articulation easy. For example, when you say dogs, you pronounce as z. This is a type of phonological process. We can also call it morpho-phonological process since there are morphemes that come together. But anyway, it's just illustrated from a phonological perspective. Dog, the s of dog is pronounced as z. Why? Because, d is voiced. G is voiced. Dog, it's voiced. And the s is also voiced because it's more difficult to say dogs than dogs. Okay? You don't make an effort to change the voicing at this level here. Phonological processes can also take place because there needs to be an optimal syllable structure. And this is an issue that we will not discuss in this specific video because we will focus more on what a process is and we'll give some examples. So phonological processes generally take place in order to make articulation easy, in order to optimize syllable structure. That is to say, it should preserve the normal syllable structure. If it's a C consonant, vowel, consonant, then the process should take place if there is a consonant, 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 vowel. That's just between brackets. We will not dwell on this issue. Now let's move on to so phonological processes can also be historical processes. Sounds can change over history, and you have now, I'm sure you know that that in Moroccan Arabic the sound t, okay, is changing into ch. And we keep joking sometimes about that when we talk about the young people who pronounce qiltulut instead of qiltulut. Here, this is a sound change, so this is a phonological process. Why is it there? Is it because it occurs in a specific environment? No. It's just because it's historical. It's like that. It's the life of a sound. Over time, speech sounds change. So, all in all, just to summarize so far, phonological processes refer to changes that sounds undergo, mainly because they occur in specific linguistic environments. What do we mean by specific linguistic environments? Some places in a word or in a syllable, or sometimes they can be neighbors of other sounds, and they need, sounds inter-influence. They influence each other. In this video, a brief presentation of the notion of a phonological process, along with a couple of examples, has been provided. In the next video, we'll continue with the main types of phonological processes along with adequate examples. Expect a video so soon as a follow-up to this one here. Thank you.